So just
What's
like
it called on YouTube?
YouTube, it's Fly Fishing with Mick. And I just kind of put it very generic. All you'll see is like a green circle with a white M in there. I'm not trying to advertise so much. It's just kind of our little thing.
Yeah.
And so it's, doesn't garner a lot of attention. It's just our group where if somebody wants to look at some of our previous meetings.
Okay.
So that's what we do. And
Yeah. And if anybody wants to see any of the Omaha videos, we're on Flatwater Fly Fishers on YouTube. And it's the same thing, it's just us good old boys.
yeah. So again, I look for the emails. I'll send out emails every week. We'll usually try to pick a fly and then someone will tie. Carl is going to do crayfish for us today. Much appreciated because I got in late last night and then the whole subdivision was having internet issues, and I'd say about 15 minutes ago it came back on. So I wasn't sure if I was going to go on the phone, start it, and then unfortunately I thought I was going to be over, but now we got internet. So Carl said he would tie, so much appreciated. Carl, I don't know if you're ready. We could hand it off to you, or if you're still prepping on materials, I could.
Well,
Yeah, a little bit.
I had full intentions of having this all set up here earlier.
Oh, I could still talk more.
Hmm?
Because I could still talk more. I'm good at that. Basically, I was at Bennett this weekend, and it was a little crazy start that some of you heard. There was I have land out there, and the previous owner was out there, but the neighbor got a little crazy and put 2 rounds over my buddy's head. So the police were involved. I was like, oh no. But that's been all resolved. So then I actually got to go fishing, and things work out for weird ways. And I was in my spot doing what I do, but struggling a little bit, but still have catching here and there. But gentleman next to me was just tearing them up. And I was like, man, what is he doing that I'm not? Started to rain. So we both walked out and sat under the tree. It wasn't lightning. So we're like, we'll just hang out under a tree. He saw the Project Healing Water hat. So we started talking, and he said he was a Vietnam vet. So I'm like, well, there's my in. Started talking to him, and we were using the same exact fly. I mean, size and everything. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he goes, I could easily tell you what you're doing wrong is your indicator's too big. And it's like, well, I've got the small, and an indicator, Lee, is just a small bobber. We call it an indicator, where unlike bluegill, where you'll see the bobber and it goes under, normally with our what we call an indicator, it's a strike indicator. You just see that it'll be just moving, and you see a little dip, and that's the trout hitting it. You have to set the hook. And I wasn't seeing that many hits. And he said the hits are extremely light right now. So he said, take off that indicator, which was still about just the size of the tip of my pinky. And he gave me those, Amy knows these, the little foam ones that you could peel off, and it's got a sticky back, and you just kind of fold it over. And it's tiny. It's the size of your pinky nail. And I put that on, and he goes, yeah, about, the same depth you were doing, just the hits are so light, you'll be able to see it on the smaller indicator that just could barely hold up the fly I was using. Rain stopped. We both went out there, and on the first catch, I watched that little indicator drop, and I had one, and he goes, there you go. And then I had a really good evening. Rest of the night, it was just like, now everyone else was watching what we were doing. So, I mean, it could be as something as you have the right fly, you're doing everything right, you got the right fly, you got the right depth, but you're not seeing the hits. And it's like, and that's a crazy thing with the trout. They might, if you're doing the indicator fishing, it's just a little hit, and then you set the hook, and all of a sudden then it fights on. So stuff like that happens. It's kind of fun. So it looks like Carl's almost ready. But the following day went out there, and again, it was kind of strange that fishing was good in the morning, and then I think Ben Haven turned the switch off, and Ben's the hatchery manager at Bennett. Fish, they all just stopped. It seemed like the trout, no one was catching. I saw that guy again. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I'm not catching either, so I don't know what it is. So They just went for lunch, and then a couple hours later, the hit was back on. So, Carl, you ready?
That's when you
Yeah.
switch to your Tenkara rod, Mick.
That's, now the crazy, that's another thing we'll have to tell Lee. There's regular fly rods and Tenkara rod. That's a whole nother discussion. But good news, John. I'm booked. And I've got it right here, January or February, I'm going to Kadena Air Base. So that's going to be my little present to myself, is to get, Roger's coming on. I'm going to get a Tenkara rod out in Japan. So January, February, I'll be out in Japan for 2 weeks.
Make a lot of money.
Yes, it's like I already said, whatever it costs, try to break through the language barrier and tell them what I'm kind of looking for, and maybe somebody could help me out and say it'll be my little souvenir after I go there. But
Two places I can think will probably give you some help. One is a Dragon Tail Tenkara.
okay,
The other one is Tenkara USA. Both of those guys are really, really good guys. And if you text them or email them from their site, they'll be more than happy to tell you what's a good Japanese rod to get. And especially if you're getting it in Okinawa.
yeah. But yeah, it's I've got another cool trip. I've got cool trips. I usually go to Wichita Falls, Texas, and that's it, to go to Shepherd Air Force Base. So I got Kadena coming up, and then I'm looking mid-October, I'll be in Lakenheath Air Base. So I'll be in the UK in October. So I've got some long trips coming up, but
And when you're in Lakenheath, go up to Cambridge and stop in the Whitley store and buy yourself a Whitley fly box.
there you go. Okay. Because we
Or,
do
or
have
a
to go
Hardy
through-
or a Hardy Marquee fly reel. You can get them for about half price over there.
Okay, I'll bug you. So yeah, give me some ideas if I'm going to be traveling on Boeing's dime for some cool stuff. All right, Carl, you ready?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to pin you so those that join in later could see it. So it's all yours. Go for it.
All right, well, I'm gonna try not to move so I can show you what I'm gonna try to tie. It's been a long time since I've tied this, and so I'm gonna be winging a little bit of this, just going off of memory. So we'll see how good my memory is. All right, so for materials tonight, we're gonna use I'm gonna use a size 12 3X long streamer hook from Wholesale Fly Company. I'm going to be using, on this particular fly, it has a weight on the back of it, because on a crawdad, you want the weight on the back as you pull it. You basically, it's a little bit of what Amy calls a little bit of a lunkin chunk. There's not a whole lot of dry fly presentation on it. You just basically to get it up towards the bank, and then you strip it in. So you have some weight on the back of it here. I'm going to be bending that hook a little bit to get a little bit of a different presentation, so it hooks up a little bit more as it sits in the water. That way, when it sits in the water, it'll stand up a little bit, and that's what the smallmouth or the trout are looking for when you have that. Is when they hit it hard, because they don't, the crawdad's going to get away on them. So that's the reason for that. For the antennas, we're going to be using the, I forgot. On the weights, I'm going to just use the Wholesale Fly Company Hourglass Eyes. These are 3.5 millimeters or 9/64. I'm going to use a little smaller one on this. The one I don't like about on this weight on this is it just doesn't seem like, it seems like it's almost too much weight. And so it just again, depends what kind of water you're fishing. But once you get all this material wet on here, it will sink pretty quick. And I'm just going to go for a little bit of a slower sink on these next ones that I'm going to tie here. For the claws, it's called Crawdad Orange. They're just squirrel zonkers, just squirrel hair that's been dyed. And basically we're going to take a right and a left and turn that into a claw. And then for the shell or the backing, I'm going to be using, where did my cover go? I wanted to show it to you. I'm going to use it's called a copper Swiss straw. And on this fly, there's some segmentation on it. And I'm going to be using a light copper wire when I do that. So I think that's all the materials. Oh, let's see here. Oh, and on the antennas, I used these the last time I did this fly. It's called Crazy Legs. It's from Hairline. This is pumpkin spice latte. So, pumpkin purple flakes. Sorry, I was getting in the season. So that was my humor for the day. All right. So first thing is I'm gonna bend the top of the hook a little bit, or not the top of the hook. I'm gonna bend the eye back a little bit, and I'm gonna switch glasses here so I can see. And sorry for wearing this shirt tonight, and I've been looking at different cameras a little bit, and I'm gonna get something different. But if you just bear with me tonight, and if you need me to slow down a little bit, I'll be glad to do that. So to get the weight to bend down and get the curve up a little bit, I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and basically about 2 eye lengths, I'm going to just bend it back a little bit. Get a little bit of a bend in the hook there. All right, so then I'm going to turn the hook back up this way. And so this fly is for those of you who don't know, the hook is actually sticking up. Most of the flies, you know, when you make a fly, it'll be like this, but the idea of this, we're going to put the weight on it on the back end here. So when it sits, the fly sits this way up in the under the water, not like that. So that's the reason for the weight. So, and for the thread, I'm just going to use an 8/0 brown thread. Any 8/0 will work. This happens to be a Amazon special Hemingway's twisted thread. I've used this thread, and it actually is a pretty good thread. It's pretty durable. The one thing I don't like about it is when you're doing deer hair or that kind of stuff, it's really sharp and will tend to cut the thread on you a little quicker. But it is definitely strong, and it is thick. Like if you want to build up something, a thread dam or whatever, it's pretty excellent for that because it does build up very quick. But if you get too carried away with your wraps, then you can tend to mess that up a little bit. So anyway, I'm going to start right here, start my thread, build it back up because I want to get a little bit of a thread base on there to start. And then this putting a dumbbell eye on is a little bit of a different factor if you haven't seen it before. There's ways to do this. The way that I like to do this that makes it easy for me is I put the dumbbell eye parallel when I start it, and I get a good couple wraps on it. And that just is enough to hold it. And then I turn it around, and then I start doing a couple figure eights in either direction. And then once I get a few figure eights on it, back and forth, then I like to go underneath it, and you want to give it a good tight underneath wrap, another figure eight wrap on each side, and then go back underneath it because you want to get that thread wrapped underneath it, and that'll help secure it. Now from this point, I'm just going to wrap forward a little ways, get my thread out of the way. Now, I'm not big on a lot of glue, but this is one of those flies that I think actually it does help to have a little bit of adhesive on it. I'm just going to take some Gorilla Glue, super glue. And I am going to put a little dab will do you, like Brill Cream, if you're old enough to know that. I never used it, but because I never had any, I never got old enough where I needed any Brill Cream because all my hair was gone. So. All right, so move that around a little bit, clean it off.
I was a Wild Root Cream Oil man myself.
A what?
Wild Root Cream Oil. Same
We
here,
had-
a different brand.
We had the 60s day when I was in when I was in junior high, we had a 60s days and everybody lather up their hair like they used to do in the 50s. And we didn't have anything at our house to use. So my dad said, use Vaseline. So I coated my whole hair with Vaseline. It took me like 3 years to get it out of my hair. Like, I'll not do that again. All right. So give that a little bit of a blow and get it, let it set. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up here. I'm gonna turn it around. So I'm going to show you there because that's basically, this is the bottom of the fly now. So that is the part there that that is how it's going to look when we get done. Now I'm going to pull it back up here. Now we'll start adding on our materials. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the antenna. So basically it's pretty simple because I like to do that first to get it out of the way. And I tie them in just a little bit longer than you need, but we'll trim it back here later. So the one thing about this fly that makes it kind of fun is that it's kind of bulky, so it's not a terrible fly to learn to do. I wouldn't say it's your first fly you ever need to do, but it's definitely a fly that can it's a little bit forgiving on some of the details versus a Wally wing or something fancy dancy like that. So what I'm doing is I'm wrapping the antenna and I'm wrapping the thread forward pretty much up here to the hook point or the barb of the hook where the barb would be if you had a barbless one. And I'm just going to leave that out there. So that's just, and these are a little long yet, but antennas on them are a little long at times. So I'm going to wrap that back a little bit, make sure it's tied in well. So the next thing is to get the claws on. Now this can be a little bit tricky, but what I've done is I've got two pieces here that I've tried to match up. And I've already cut them, but if you can see that, they're kind of opposite ends of each other. You got basically a right hand and a left hand. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to adhere those right here to the side. And what I'm going to do is there's some fur here, some hair at the edge of this. And I want to create a spot here where I can grab the thread with that's relatively easy. So I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to trim back maybe about 1/4 inch of that.
What are those cut from, Carl?
This is squirrel zonker. So I'm gonna tilt, using my rotary vise, I'm gonna tilt it over to the side. Got a little flyaway here there. And I'm gonna tie this right on the side of the hook. And I'm gonna take, that was the right hand. Let's see if the left hand knows what it's doing here. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Just trim a little bit off of that. So there we go. It's starting to look a little bit like a crawdad. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that that is good and secure. And so I'm going to throw a few extra wraps back into this thing a little bit. And kind of came out fairly even, actually. All right, so for dubbing, oh, I forgot about the dubbing. I'm going to be using what they call just this, and it's going to be the burnt orange. It's awesome opossum. Awesome possum.
Awesome possum.
As my daughter used to say when she was little, she would never say, when she learned how to read, she'd always call them, she always get frustrated because it's really an opossum, Dad. So that was the life I had to live with there. All right, so basically what we're going to want to do here is we're going to tie in fly tying, you always want to use the last thing you're going to use, you're going to want to tie it in first. So the last thing we're going to be doing is putting our skin, the last thing we're going to do is be putting our copper. So I'm going to tie in the copper wire first, then I'm going to put the skin in, and then I'm going to put a hackle in. And so what I'm going to do is and then we're going to dub it. And what I want to try to do is get a better profile on this fly than I did on this one. This one's a pretty narrow, straight fly. Like it, you know, just for more of essence of prettiness, probably a little bit of a bulkier up here below the head and the thorax of it. And then crawdad's got a taper to them. So I'm gonna, that's what my attempt is on this one here. So on the Swiss straw, basically I'm taking a piece that's about 3 or 4 inches, and I cut it and I spread it open. And what I like to do on this is I go ahead and I take it and I fold it into thirds. So I just fold it down one way, and then I fold it up a third the other way. So when I get that together, I take my thumb and fingernail, and this is sort of halfway durable stuff. But you can see as I get it tied in, and I pull it over, I'm gonna have enough here for a tail. I wanna make like a tail or a flute out of the back of this. So I'm going to tie it in. Now this is where sometimes Band-Aids are a little bit required, but if you're not very careful with your fingers, because we are wrapping right around the point of the hook. So I'm gonna tie it in here. Oh, I was gonna do the copper wire first, sorry. Caught myself. So in cutting wire, you want to have different sets of scissors when you're tying flies. This, I got my ones that I use on a regular basis for everything. I got my super sharp ones that I only use for when I really need super sharp. I got 2 of those. And then I got a big long one that I use for when I'm cutting deer hair. But for cutting wire or any other materials, or can opener, or scraper to get the gunk off of your bodkins, A good sharp or a good pair of toenail pliers or scissors work really good for everything else. Doesn't have to be those kind, but it's just something that works. I've had these for a long time and they still hold up really, really well. So anyway, I am going to take my copper wire and I am going to tie that in here. So right now we're tying the fly right side up. Right now it's the direction it's going to be when it's sitting in the water. So I'm going to go ahead and as I wrap in there, you got to be careful of that barb. Move it over. You want to go up 90 degrees, go over about 35 or 40 degrees, go back behind the hook, and then go back through it. That way you can avoid hitting that. Then I'm going to take my Swiss straw, and then I am going to tie that in. And you can start tying it in up here at the back, and it's easier to catch. You don't catch your fingers that way, but you want to kind of move it over to the side as you're wrapping in. And I want to wrap right up to where I stop my thread, where I have my claws in. So then I'm going to just go ahead and finish wrapping this all the way back in. And putting that in like that also helps you get you some start for your taper. It's not quite the taper I'm looking for yet, but it does help in it. All right. So the next item to put in is a hackle. It doesn't have to be the most expensive hackle. I've had this for probably 30 some years. And what I have left out of it is all my wet fly material. Although it does have some, shows you how old this is. This was about as good a quality hackle as you could get 30 years ago. A lot different than what you can buy today, but I have enough wet, since I've had this for about 30 years, I'm 57. I figure by 87, I might have this one used up. But I want to get a brown and get a fairly good long one here. But as you can see, since this is a wet fly, what we'll be looking is making sort of like legs underneath it. That's what the hackle is going to kind of represent, and you kind of want them bushy and long. So I don't know if this one's what I'm looking for here, but yeah, that should work. All right, so to prepare the hackle, we're going to tie it in here and we're going to wrap backwards with this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare it. So I'm just going to snip off this front part here where all the marabou or under feathers, whatever you want to call them, the part that nobody uses for anything. And I'm going to take my hackle and I'm going to strip back, probably a good ½ inch to that regard. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and tie this in. I'm going to wrap my head up and I'm going to put this in where the curve goes away from me or towards me. And I'm going to do it away from me so I can get more of a palmate effect where these legs stick out forward.
Carl, when you're showing things, to me anyways, if you kept whatever you're showing on your side of the fly and slightly below it, seems to be a good spot where it
Oh,
focuses.
right here?
No, actually back the other side. On your side of the fly, near your chest.
Oh, here?
Yeah, because it tends to focus there, and right in there, we can really see what you're doing, at least to me.
Okay, cool. All right, I didn't know that. So anyway, thank you, Roger. I'm going to wrap that in. Wrap forward. All right, so we're about ready to do some dubbing. And I'm going to keep the theme with this and just do a burnt orange dubbing. So I'm going to get some dubbing and I'm going to prepare it. And I want to get it thick at the top. So I'm just kind of working the dubbing to try to get some of the strands kind of in the same direction. Get a little loose hair on there. And then I'm going to take my wax, and this is Waspy, a dubbing wax, and I probably have had this for 15 years. Had it a long time. I don't even remember when I got it. But. So in dubbing, you want to take your material and you want to run your thumb and forefinger through it. And some people call this a noodle. And I'm going to wrap it. I'm going to get it right up, get that dubbing right up into it. So the stuff down here. I'm going to get it started.
I know a lot of other names for that, particularly when it's not going well.
Sorry, blankety blank explicative. So I'm going to build up the front part here a little bit. And as it wraps up, I'm going to pull it back towards me a little bit. As I get that thread wrapped around the shake of the hook and that dubbing, that's kind of the trick there for me. And keep moving as you roll forward, trying to do it. Now that I've got a little bit on there, I'm going to put a little more wax on. And it's kind of tacky, this stuff is. And some people like it, some don't. I like it for stuff like this. If I'm doing something a little bit finer, I won't even use it. But it works good with this sort of thread, this thicker corded thread where you can kind of see it. All right. Continue to wrap and work on getting that taper. Can you guys see the taper on there very well?
Yeah, we can see it starting to build.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to wrap this up and around the dumbbell eyes. I don't want to get it too thick because it's always better when I don't use my rotary voice that much, but I found when I'm talking with you guys on it, it really, I don't hit the camera as much. So, I wonder if that's why rotary devices were invented. Could be, I don't know. All right, so get a few wraps there to kind of head it off at the pass there. And so one of the tricks that I learned a long time ago, a lot of people, you can have on the end of your bodkins, sometimes they'll come with a half hitch. If you don't have that, I've had this Advanced Pest Control Systems pin top, and I always joke it's my most expensive tool that I have, but just real handy to have in there and throw a half hitch on there if you want to kind of do something there. But when I put my thread on the vise or my holder, my thread holder, I do like to use it for that because it makes it a lot easier. Gets it out of the way and your thread doesn't come off. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to wrap this one full circle. And if you can see how the feathers are pointing this way, pointing towards the front of it, starting to lay back. I'm just going to keep wrapping this back all the way right up to the dumbbell eye. Take my thread, and then I'm going to thumb and forefinger on one end, pull the thread around on the other. Before I let go, I like to get 2 wraps on it, and then you can get control of your thread. And then I'm going to just clean this part off a little bit. Now, I'm gonna keep that open because I want to be able to get, when I make my flute with the back end of the, we're looking at making the flute back here. This one's kind of a little bit beat up, but I want to be able to get enough of it back there to where I can, when I have it sitting on there, that I can at least have enough of a tail stick up. And by doing this, it allows me to have enough room here where I'm not crowding my eye. So when I'm trying to get my fly on there with my leader, my tippet, I can at least do it with a little bit more finesse other than just waiting, standing in the creek with cold fingers, trying to figure out how it works. So anyway. All right, so the next item is I am going to get my copper wire set up out of the way here. And I've got my backing for my shell here. Now, I've watched it being done in several different ways. But some people will trim it, some won't trim it back here. I like to leave it. I've gotten to the point where I used to trim it, but I don't do that anymore. And the reason I don't is having that extra hair in there, I think gives it a little bit more of a bulk underneath there. And when we get done with it, we're going to put some Solaris hardener on it, UV glue, and help that backing. It gives it a little bit more durability and kind of helps hold together. But I like to leave the feathers in there and just smash them in there because it adds to a little bit of a flatter body, and to me, it kind of gives it a little bit more of that crawdad profile that we're kind of looking for. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and take my Swiss straw. I'm going to wrap it around, get a couple loose wraps because I want to get it good and get it where I can center it. And sometimes you kind of have to mess around with this a little bit on the top here to get it centered. But, you know, if you haven't tied it too tight, you should be able to get it on there pretty easy. Then after I get it on, I'm going to take a couple wraps there behind it just to hold it. Now we're going to take the copper wire around and basically add the segmentation to this fly. Give it that shell back appearance that crawdads tend to have. And get about 4 or 5 turns on it. And then I'm going to go back up around the flute here. And then I'm going behind my tail, and then I'm going to wrap it in right here. Now, some people can helicopter this if they want to, or whatever. I just find it's easier just to trim it. I don't need that hook there. Save that one little piece for the next one. So now I got my flute back here. I'm gonna kind of pull it out a little bit. And I'm just gonna give it a nice little trim right up here at the back. And the last item is to take my antennas, and you can kind of do whatever your preference is. Most of them have pretty long ones, so I just hold it together up here at the front, give it a little snip. And there is your crawdad.
Very nice.
I'm impressed I remembered how to do it.
Carl, have you ever thought about putting eyes on it?
Any eyes?
Yeah, you know, most of them I've seen, especially the guys that do the shrimp down in Florida, they'll use eyes at the hook
Oh,
net
no.
by the claws.
Yeah, I've
But
done that.
with-
I've done that before. I've just taken monofilament
Yeah,
and burned it at the end, which I think the first presentation I did was something like this.
Just bring it back a little. There you go.
Now that's got eyes and everything, and
and bring it back towards your shirt, Carl. We can't see it. There, yeah. Okay. Do you tie the eyes in after you put the claws on or before?
before,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
These were fun to make. I enjoyed making these. I've only fished them a couple times, but I think they're too big for what we fish around here.
They're hard to throw, Carl. But other than that, I mean, it's a great pattern, and that actually gets to use up the other part of capes and hackle for your wings. So on pheasant and things like that, you can cut them and it looks like a claw. That was excellent.
Yep, good job.
Thank you. Well,
All right, Amy, you said you were gonna help us with some dumbbell eyes.
Yep. So I'll jump in with this. Let me switch over on camera. And so again, same thing Carl did. And I think it's really intimidating when you go in, it's like dumbbell eyes, right? What dumbbell and what's the difference between bead chain? Here's what Carl did tonight. And so again, you get to see the rubber legs. You have a little bit of squirrel zonker in there. He also did the husk, which is in and how you buy that. But I think one of the things with the dumbbell eyes, because you can, the fly shops are intimidating, right? You walk in and you're going, oh my gosh, what am I getting? So I'm going to show you a little dollar store trick. Yes, I do have them labeled. You can go in and then you can kind of sort them. So it makes it a little bit easier. This is only a size 12, so I don't want a lot of weight to this. And actually, quite selfishly, I don't want to use the good eyes, meaning I'm not using the painted because all I'm doing is flipping the weight of the fly over because I want this to right hook up. So I'm not going to use a painted, enameled. I'm not going to use the good stuff. But I think also when you start on this, and so I'm on a Dairiki on mine, and when you start into the, oh, but wait, actually, so Carl's fly is hooked to a line, so it's on mono, just to show you. So you throw it in, and this will right itself in the water, which is really pretty cool. And that's what we want when you're fishing some areas. You want this riding up as opposed to catching on every single rock, which a true crawdad would. So, but with laying on your dumbbell eyes, biggest thing is start with a base. And so on this one, I'm just going to lay in a little bit of thread because I want an anchor point. I come in with my scissors, cut my tail. So I've gone over it a couple times. And then it's a matter of holding it all in place because these are tiny, tiny little things. And you guys have great big hands, right? And so again, you look at it, go, how do I get this going? So let me change my vise a little bit as to the angle so that you can see kind of the top and bottom. And I'm coming in and I'm going to lay over. I'm going to pinch it in place, right? And I'm going to get 3 anchors in, and then I'm going to come behind. And when I do that, so imagine yourself sewing a button on, right? You're making that same X pattern. Come up over. Mine's moving. Come up over. You go crisscross. And that will help you with the eyes, but you can see those are extremely small. I'm just going to go ahead and cut off this one right now. I know you guys are all like, wait, no, it's a good eye. But I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and cut that out. I know, because they're painful. They're painful to start with, because you drop them on the floor, you drop them everywhere, and they bounce. So let me get this cleared. If not, we'll get a new one. So again, same thing. I'm going to come in and a GSP orange. You can do this with any thread. I prefer on this, come in, lay it up towards the front. I'm going to create a good thread base, because if I do use glue, like what Carl talked about, I want the glue to stick to something. John Wright, who's the doubter of all doubts, metal on metal and super glue will not adhere. Right? So I can actually take my super glue and I can use this, but metal on metal, yeah, Gorilla Glue it'll foam up on you and do some other things. But if you have a thread base, your glue has somewhere to stick to. So that's what we're doing. And so I'm taking a larger size just for, and let me turn that. You guys can see that okay? Coming in, I kind of lay it at an angle, and I go in and I grab a couple of times, and then I have a position where I can manipulate it, right? So then I can come behind it. Think of jacks, think of a button, whatever you want to do. And you can see, so it's spinning on this. That means that I need some behind. I want to crisscross again. I want to come in front. And I'm going to build up this entire thread over the middle in the dumbbell when I'm building these. And again, when we fish these, it's upside down. So that's how you're kind of changing it. But I think dumbbells and then bead chain, and people are kind of, like, what do I use? If it's a small one, it's easier to throw. You'll get a little bit more life out of it. If it's a great big one, you run the risk of it hitting your fly rod coming through. It's harder to chuck. It's a chuck and duck. Honestly, you get one cast and that's it. And then you let it drift. And you'll start this downstream. You're not going to, and you can go around and around and around, all kinds of things. But basically think of that crisscross, because you're trying to anchor it in place. And then if you want to come in and you want to add, again, super glue, I have a Gorilla Glue here. I have a couple other ones, head cement, if you wanted to. But that was all I had on just basically, because I think the dumbbell eyes are a little bit intimidating. And especially if you start moving into bigger ones. And then my last one, let me just go ahead and switch out on this one. And because this one is much more of an hourglass shape, so again, same, sorry, John, I'm switching over to the white because that's what I know and that's what I tie. Lay down a base, come back, and I'm going to build this up because I'm going for durability, right? I'm just not, it's not about the color on this one. You're going to cover it up with every single thing you're putting on here. And again, the straw, the zonkers, everything else. So this eye is much more hourglass. So it's same thing, but I come on my side. I'm going to grab that hourglass, 3 wraps. I can come around. I can position it. Now I'm going to go in front of that hourglass and see how it straightens out. So I'm going with equal tension. When we say loose wraps, it's not loose tension. It's just a looser style as to you're trying to move things around. I prefer hourglass over the dumbbell. Because again, this one has not shifted and I don't have much play in it on that. And I can still come in and create. But again, look for when you're looking for these. So these that don't have the little painted fancy, you can use these. We're just using this for a weight, right? It's just to flip the fly. Sorry, it just got a hopper. It's just to flip the fly. It's presentation wise, but this is bigger than I would want to throw on this. So but it's intimidating because you walk in and you're going, oh, 30 seconds of a what, you know, which size. Unfortunately, you're going to play around with this, figure out what you like, and then figure out from there, because it depends on the rod you're also casting. The squirrel zonkers, Roger was asking about this. So these are micro, and you can get them. I'll give Feathercraft a shameless plug on this. You can get these. And what I love with this is because every time you cut within the grain, it creates that point, right? So every time you've got a claw that came out, you're not wasting any material at all. So if I use this for a claw, I cut it here, I already have another claw that created itself. So it's not a waste of money. They're good. I did a little bit of smallmouth this weekend, and they took everything. Here's some bigger ones. Sorry, this is just a big and ugly, big weighted, wears me out to throw something this large, but you can see the difference on this. And sorry, bad habits come into play, but a lot of flash. So you can add, crawdad is all about color. So they come in black, purple, orange. Orange is what we know, and just go for fun. So that's all I had.
Very nice. Thank you. All right. Any last questions? 'Cause I think we're coming up on our hour. So Amy, any last things you want to talk from program down, or you're good? This is just for fun, right? So you're just hanging out with the gang.
I just want to be one of you.
Yep, and you are. You're always one
Yeah.
of us. You're always welcome. We miss Steve too, so hopefully we'll see him. Is he coming down?
No, we don't. John can test for that. No, we don't. But if you guys have not seen, if John Wright, if you could share the video from last week. I know I jumped on for the last 10 minutes or something. Talked about the Charles Baswell Great Plains Bonefish Invitational. But John, if you've got a second, if you could drop that in the chat for everybody, or send them to.
I sent it
already
out.
in
It's
there?
email. Everyone here is, if you check your email, it's out there. So you guys have it. Please look in.
So-
It's something we could do next week, but Amy, or next year, Amy, go ahead, take over again.
No, I was gonna say it was something, again, moving, well respected, well earned. John, great job. I said it last week too. It was just great. Okay, that was one of ours.
Yeah.
Charles Baswell was probably, besides John just giving me like just the pain in the head all the time, Charles was my longest Project Clean Waters relationship that I had.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he was.
So I appreciate, he was veterans all the way through and through. I couldn't even begin to tell you that if you haven't been there, you want to go. The things that are challenged to the program leads, Mick, obviously, for going next year. Yeah, because if you haven't fished for carp, and I haven't posted it, I haven't been on social media in a long time, but I haven't posted any pictures. And I showed these to my mom. My mom's 88. I showed them and she's like, oh my gosh. And I said, oh, took me to the backing every single time. So it was a blast. It was completely
Cool.
different from our trout fishing from, again, I was fishing this weekend, smallmouth, everything else that would take. This is something that you want to be excited about for any time to come. And if you're ever in Nebraska, of course, call John.
Yeah.
But it was a remarkable weekend, and the video doesn't even, because how it is, right? You look through your family videos, you look through, just different things, music that kind of brings it, and you can be there. This isn't even the tip of the iceberg. And if you can't put a picture behind every story that you see in every picture that's in the video, then yeah, skip it next year, but you'll get it. So it was great. John, again, thanks. Sorry, I'm sure I embarrassed you. I saw you laughing, but then I didn't see you laughing. It was amazing. And well done. Thank you to the state of Nebraska.
It was a work of love.
Yep.
It was every minute of it. Every minute. So on that note, I'm going to go eat wings because that's what I do on Monday nights.
Cool.
I will see you guys. And I actually don't think I'm traveling next weekend.
Nice.
No, I'm good with that. It does sometimes involve fishing.
Cool.
Love it. Anyway, everybody have a great week, and
Yep.
thanks again, Mick, for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Couldn't do it without you, so. All right, everyone else, next Monday is actually Labor Day. I will still have this meeting if you want to join in. Again, these meetings aren't mandatory, so if you could make it, great. If not, do spend time with family. And just real quick things going on. Our next big fishing event is September 10th at Vets Fish Free at Montauk. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. So if you guys still want to show up, let me know who's, I'll be actually, I need to put out, I'll put an invite out tomorrow. That way I could start seeing who's coming out there. So do know it's the 10th. And then if you want to make it, I'll let everyone know who's going. That way you guys can meet up. Unfortunately, I've got family plans already there. So outside of the 10th, then Saturday, September 24th is Women's Fish Free at Bennett. Amy will be there. My wife will be there. Hopefully we could come support them if you're out there. I know Lee already has his camping there. So we'll both be at Hidden Valley Outfitters that weekend. So that's going on. October is right around the corner. I'm super busy, as I kind of said, with some travel, but we'll figure out some days to get in October. Fishing's a little bit tougher if we go to the parks. The bite is a little bit light, but the leaves are starting to change color, and it's just fun to be sitting in the stream and just taking in all the outdoors. It's just absolutely beautiful time of year. Come November, I know it's right around the corner, but Missouri Department of Conservation will be stocking the local lakes with trout. So even if you're in the city, Forest Park, one of their lakes is stocked with trout. Ferguson has a lake full of trout, and then a lot of us end up at Bush Wildlife and Defiance, and they have 4 lakes stocked with trout. So we do some trout fishing during the winter. It's a little bit closer and we have a good time. So that's what's coming up. We are going to try to do November overnight at Bennett for the catch and release. The dates I'm kind of looking at that will either be the 11th through the 13th it's a Friday through Sunday, or the 18th through the 20th, which is the weekend before Thanksgiving. So there was a couple people that wanted to do that. Pretty much those dates will be kind of pick where you want to stay. You could either bring your camper or stay at one of the hotels. I'll keep everyone in the loop on what we're doing, but I will use program funds to help out the participants, and I will be covering the food as well. So we'll have breakfast burritos in the morning, and then we'll either do like beef stew, chili in the evenings, and just kind of hang out. So that's all I have for now. I think next week I'm going to tie some midges and nymphs. I haven't done that in a while, and appreciate Amy and Carl taking care of fly tying tonight, since I was kind of busy with other things. So I promise you next Monday I'll do some nymphs and stuff. Frank, this is that little itty bitty, it's about
I'll
an
be
inch
darned.
long. It's about the
Okay.
easiest fly you could tie in the world. It's an inch long. As you can see, it's got a, trying to get off my shirt or something, where it's a 90-degree eye from the hook. And this is the easiest thing to tie. And boy, it works at Bennett year round. So
Okay,
It's-
thank you, Mick.
yeah, I have a ton of these. If anyone fly is going to work for me at Bennett, it's that we could tie the most beautiful flies, and then you take some white thread and wrap it around the hook, and the trout go nuts. So go figure. But I will demonstrate that and a couple other nymphs I do. I like the midges and all that. I'll probably tie several next Monday, but again, it's a holiday. If you can make it, great. If not, don't worry. We'll see you soon. So again, I'll get the invite for September 10th, because that's coming up right around the corner. I should have got
Yep.
earlier. So know it's out there. And if you guys want to go, please do. And I'll get a list of those who are going so you guys can meet up. If you need anything in the meantime, like I said, I had a lot of donations of fly tying material. Give me an email. I'll make sure I get that material. Just tell me what you need and we'll get you hooked up. So that's all I got. If you have any questions, you have my email, you have my phone number. Reach out, and we'll see you soon. So I took 10 extra minutes of your time. Again, I'll let you guys go. If you need anything, holler. Until
Thanks,
then,
Nick.
see you next week.
All righty,
Night all.
Take everyone.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, good night.
Good night, Lee.
Headlines, everybody.